Okay, I'm here with Michael McLaughlin, who is the CEO of Mindshare Consulting. Michael, before we get into it, maybe you could give us just a little sense for the work you do with Mindshare.
Well, Joe, I work with professional service companies. Pretty much anybody who sells their expertise for a fee into the market. I work mostly on business development and the sales process.
Terrific. Michael, what are you seeing out there in the business climate that's new or different that executive leaders need to be mindful of as they navigate risks and opportunities out there?
I think two things come to mind. The first is, in spite of record corporate profits that we're seeing and the news that the economy is actually coming back, the era of doing more with less, of keeping staff levels where they are, adding more things to what people are already doing, that's the norm. So people are waiting for the economy to come back so that they get more people, they get more capabilities to do the things they do. That's just not happening. The second thing is we're going to see over the next few years a real talent drain. I saw a statistic recently that said by the year 2020, 40% of American workers will be freelancers. That does not bode well for those who are in corporate positions trying to hire. So you take those two trends, and you've got it's an interesting dynamic happening in the corporate world.
Well, Michael, where, from your perspective, are executives going these days to find confidence, to sort through all the information overload that they're dealing with? What's your perspective? Are there best practices from your clients that you think might apply to executive leaders in a variety of leadership roles?
What's interesting to me, Joe, is that it seems as though in an era of lots of information, almost too much information, the executives are going to a narrower group of people, narrower set of sources to do analysis of decisions, to look at alternatives, and to decide what they want to do. They're trying as hard as they can to filter out the noise. And to do that, lots of them are shrinking the numbers of people and the sources of information that they're actually going to make decisions. And that means they're going to look for people they really trust.
Michael, how do business leaders filter for trust? How do they get to that level of trust, that breakthrough that signals a real commitment to the business objectives at hand?
You know, it's an interesting thing about trust. People believe that trust takes a long time to develop. Reality is, trust can be established almost instantly. I mean, think about times when you've met somebody who you just immediately trusted. Now, it takes time for that trust to form, to really bond. But trust can be built very quickly as long as somebody is transparent, open, willing to be independent in their thinking, objective. Those are the ingredients for trust. And what I'd like to see people do, and what I have seen the most trusted types of people do, is build trust quickly by being credible, being transparent, and then over time, they cement that trust through their interactions by being open and honest and objective and independent, and, for lack of a better word, being agenda-free. Those are the key ingredients, I think, that make really a trusted person to work with.
Okay. I know that you're an advocate of exploration and some discovery in the form of conversations with business leaders. Is it your sense that conversations are becoming more meaningful as leaders look to do business with one another, or perhaps with service providers of one sort or another? I mean, what's the real importance? Have conversations really become sort of a new currency of trust?
I think so, and I think what you're finding is that conversations, which can be, substantial, valuable, things that are important to the people you're working with, the people who you're working for, conversations become, as you said, the currency. They become the things that are the most important, because if you can establish a good conversation, a high-value, substantive conversation with the people you're working with, they will remember that. That will be part of their experience with you. That contributes to trust. And that trust contributes to strong relationships. So I absolutely think there should be much more emphasis on conversations and the quality of conversations we have with each other, particularly in the business environment.
Okay. One question about executive leadership. I mean, do you see executive leadership changing? What's your view in terms of, where the business dynamic, where the business climate might be going? Perhaps not so much in economic terms, but in human or personal terms. Any thoughts on some of the trend lines or things that you see over the horizon?
I think there's been over the years a sterile kind of corporate environment, but when you peel that away, we're still talking about human interactions. We're still talking about, as you said, conversations we have with people. So I think you're going to find that when it comes to executive level decision making, people are going to work with the ones they trust. They're going to work with the people they have those great conversations with. They're going to work with people they like. And that you can't achieve that unless you're having great conversations and working really closely together. So I don't think the environment is sterile. I don't think it's going to remain that way. I think it's going to change. We'll become more human in our interactions. At least I hope so. Okay,
great. Lastly, Michael, any anecdotes or thoughts you might share in terms of breakthroughs, just in terms of establishing breakthroughs either in business terms or in human conversational terms? Anything that you've seen in the last few years that might sort of suggest executive leaders, pay close attention in terms of developing relationships?
I think in terms of breakthroughs, there are a lot of things we already know we need to do. And the question is, do we really do them? And so, do we really take the time to listen? Do we really take the time to understand before we advance conclusions and before we come to some kind of answer? So much of what is making people more productive these days is being more effective listeners, being people who can understand, listen, integrate what they hear, and not jump to any kind of conclusion. This isn't a breakthrough, but it's something that if people can do it well, that is, get good conversations, be good listeners, really work hard on understanding things before they can conclude, they'll create lots of great experiences with people, lots of great working relationships, and increased trust.
Great. Michael, thanks very much for your time.
Pleasure.